Hey, welcome back to the Big Red Zone. We're very excited for today's show. Remember, new episodes come out every Thursday. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Big Red Zone. And of course, tell a friend. Today, it's a season premiere of season 5, but it's also our final season, starting the final season of the Big Red Zone. We'll talk a little bit about what we got in store for the upcoming season, as well as talking about the Patriots. Patriots starting in a couple weeks. NFL starts in a couple weeks, so we'll break down some Patriots off season stuff like that. Look around the NFL. Sox have just struggled the last month, so we'll break down the Sox and as we're starting to wrap up that season, and of course the people's topic. All that and more in this week's episode of the Big Red Zone. Welcome to the podcast. This is the Big Red Zone. I'm your host, Big Red. As always, I am joined by Danny Football.
How we doing, Big Red? It's the retirement tour.
It's the retirement tour. I feel like I feel like David Ortiz. David Ortiz did the old.
There it is.
He did the old retirement tour. So yeah, we're gonna go city to city and just take it all in for one last ride. So
Getting free gifts left and right.
Yeah, I know we got to take this podcast on the road. Maybe we'll get a couple some cowboy boots or some seats from
some plates.
Some plates, some like numbers from the scoreboard.
Right.
Fenway, you know what I mean? So we gotta take this on the road, I guess. But yeah, you said it. The last season of the Big Red Zone. I'm using, final season, using a different laptop for this for this little ride. So I'm getting used to the little camera angles here. But yeah, it's final season, as Danny Football said. We're gonna go through, have one last ride. We'll have a bunch of familiar faces come on the show through for most of the weeks. I think we got some people lined up, and we're still working on getting some more. Maybe some new faces. But we got some potential new faces, and of course some of our fan favorites. So I'm looking forward to it. It's a bittersweet feeling because this has been doing this in a couple weeks will be our 3-year anniversary of the first episode of the Big Red Zone. So
Wow.
at the end it'll be an over 3-year process, and we've had a blast. But we'll kind of get into that more, like the memories tour, probably in a couple weeks on the season 3, because we'll probably be talking about the 3-year anniversary. We'll talk about that. We may have a familiar face on that episode, and but what are you looking forward in this one last ride, Danny Football?
Going out on top. It's been a long ride. You and me talked about it last week. It just felt like it was time. It just took me an hour to get this Zoom call going. So the computer's on its last leg in terms of getting these things done. So we've had some good times, man. I mean, we had some good Patriot seasons. Celtics made a run last year. Bruins made a run a couple years ago in 2019. We were talking about that. Sox had that 2018 had that run last year. We were both at the ALCS, so we've gotten to cover some good stuff. So hopefully they got a little bit more left for us. Sox not so much, but hopefully the C's and B's and the Pats can give us something to work with.
Yeah, you never know, man. Maybe the Sox figure it out the last couple weeks. They bring up
That'd
your boy
crazy.
in AAA, Tristan Cassis, to play first base.
He's earned
Maybe
it.
he can rake.
He's earned it.
Yeah. I know we'll probably talk about it more, like I said, in a couple weeks for the 3-year anniversary show. But any specific things that stand out to you? Favorite memories from the last 4 seasons?
Obviously coming on the first time was that was a lot of fun. The Andy Dalton clip will always live on as one of my favorites. Vehemently defending Andy Dalton. Just the ones that stick out for me are the two recordings we did at your house before the pandemic kind of flipped things on its head again. Having you, John, and me in the same room was a lot of fun. Even while we were watching that Chiefs game. So that was probably the highlight so far.
Yeah, I remember you got a little, and I'm disappointed we didn't get to do it longer, but you got a little taste of the studio life, like having podcasts in the studio, and those are, some of my favorite episodes because it's like, we have a good time doing the Zoom calls, but like when you're in person, nothing beats it. Like feeding off each other, doing doing the in-person shows. So, yeah, the pandemic definitely put a little monkey wrench into the whole plan, but I've had a blast. Specifically, I think you've been on the last 2 years.
Almost.
You'll be 2 years, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be 2 years in November, I think.
Yeah,
Or
so
October.
something like that. So you've been on, for almost 2 years, and I've had a blast those 2 years, and obviously I've had a blast since the beginning. So, like we said, we're gonna press on, try to go out with a little bit of a bang, and continue to enjoy each week because every week I have a great time with you and the rest of the Big Red Zone.
We
So
still got some life left. We're not done yet. We still got a couple
we
of
got
bets.
we got some juice in the tank here. We got some juice, and we're gonna let it ride.
Last ride, baby.
Last ride. So let's get into it. This is where this is where the money's made, Danny Football. This is where it's in your name. It's in your name. You know what I mean? So, Patriots Pre-Season. We've had 3 games to kind of look at this team. The first teamers didn't really play in the first game, so it's hard to really get a good look at that first game. But you've had the first team play the last 2. Are you nervous, excited? What are your thoughts going into from what we've seen? Not going into the season, but what are your thoughts of what you've seen so far from this Patriots team?
Right. So, like you said, that Giants game, not a lot of starters, mostly kind of the backups. Panthers game, a little bit more integrated. And the Raiders game wasn't the most confidence-inspiring game I've ever seen. So right now, I'm not panicking, but it doesn't look great. I'm not going to lie. It doesn't look great.
Yeah, I agree.
That's just my initial thought. Like off the bat, I'm worried.
Yeah, I'm not really concerned with the first loss. I mean, they went 1-2 in the preseason. The first loss, I'm not really too banged up about because it's all backup guys, and I could care less. Our backups aren't going to be playing. Hopefully, not going to be playing the majority of the season. The second game, I was actually feeling kind of good about where we were at. You know what I mean? Because the Mac Jones led offense wasn't great, but it was good. I mean, you could tell Mac is rusty, sitting out for 6 months, not playing. Like it was his first game, like real life game action. And I thought he had a lot of good plays, and I was like, you know what, he's just going to keep getting better. I'm not too concerned. And he had that nice play to Aguilar. The last game against the Raiders, I mean, especially coming off a week where all you heard reports wise was, the Pats look great. Jalen Mills, I heard reports Jalen Mills was locking up Devontae Adams and drills. Like I'm hearing Mac Jones is throwing dimes. Like it was like, wow, like we look good in practice. And I think Bill Belichick even said it better. He said that they practiced a lot better than they played. Like the whole week of practice, they played well, and then when it came down to the game, they kind of they stunk. So that makes me nervous because we need. I mean, Mac didn't look that great in that last game, and for this team to succeed, we need Mac to take it to another level. So I think you're right. I think the concern level for me after this, looking at this preseason, is higher than it was going into the offseason. Like when we finished the show, I mean, we were talking about it a few months ago, and I was like, when the schedule came out, we were like, you know what? I feel like this team can win 9 to 10 games. Like I feel like that's not really that hard. I still feel that way. Like, I feel like they can still win 9 to 10 games and be a wild card team, but not if they play the way they have in these, like, couple preseason games, and I get it. Bill Belichick teams always play better as the season goes on. They always start worse than they finish. But based on what I've seen in the preseason, you're right. There is a level of concern there for this Patriots team.
So I agree with you. I think from what we can see that the team this isn't like a terrible team. This isn't like the 2020 team where we have no one on the roster. Cam Newton and we're struggling. My biggest concern is the defense, man. This defense looks absolutely anemic. Like Malcolm Butler has a cup of coffee in the secondary and he's gone. Jalen Mills is I don't know if he's our first cornerback.
He's our number one corner right now.
So I guess he's our number one corner right now. So that doesn't instill a lot of confidence in me that Jalen Mills is your CB1. That's what scares me, man. The secondary looks the secondary looks very thin. We didn't improve much in the linebacking core, and we called that a big cause for concern in the offseason. The offense is going to be the offense. Like, the offense will struggle, but the offense will have its weeks where it puts up its numbers. But for me, it remains to be seen if this defense is going to be able to stand on its own 2 feet and really get stops when we need stops. Because we kind of mentioned it during the offseason, is if this team gets into a shootout, they're not winning shootouts. It's just not going to happen. So my big concern is the defense. I think something has to give with the defense.
Yeah, I mean, we said it during the offseason. Their big problem was they lost. They didn't add. Like, their defense, they didn't add. They had Malcolm Butler and he gets hurt, which really, that's, if you're hanging your hat on Malcolm Butler, that's not a good day. Like, we talked about how the linebacking core looks old and slow. All they did was get rid of Dante Hightower. We talked about how the corners aren't great. What do? We get rid of our best corner, or don't re-sign our best corner. So you're right. The defense is a major concern. And, I think another big cause for concern, which is something that we've said over and over again, who's leading this defense? There is no coordinator. It's like, that's a major red flag, a major concern. And, I'd feel a lot better if they just said, you know what, even if it would, I feel worse, but even if they said it was like, if you're going to say Steve Belichick is the defensive coordinator, that's not a good decision, but at least you're saying this is the guy that's calling the plays. This is the guy that's responsible for leading the defense. I'd rather them just say, Gerard Mayo, you're our defensive coordinator. Do whatever you got to do, and you're leading the defense.
But I mean, we saw how. I mean, Matt Patricia's calling the offensive plays, so I really don't know what difference it makes who calls the defense at this point. I mean, in all honesty, Matt Patricia should be calling the defense because at least he knows defense. Does he know defense well? Not really, but at least he was a DC. Why he's calling offensive plays, I have no idea. But regardless, yeah, I mean, you have that guy ass backwards calling the offense. You have no one calling the defense. So I don't know if Bill's just pulling the strings like he usually does. I know there were a couple of years there where we didn't have a true DC, and it was him and Gerard Mayo kind of did his thing. Steve Belichick did his thing. Josh McDaniels isn't walking through that door as much as we kind of criticized him for his play calling. At least he was a solid OC. So the coaching staff, you're right, is definitely a chunk of the pie that is cause for concern between that, the defense, and then, the whole new scheme they're putting in on offense, which from what I've seen, some days they have it, some days they don't.
I mean, when we talked about the offseason, like going into the offseason, we felt really good. And we said, hey, these are the holes we have. Our linebacking core is old. We need to get younger and faster and get some new linebacking core people in here. Our corners are okay, but we need to add some depth. We need some receiving. And we need to fill the offensive coordinator position, the coordinator positions, defensive coordinator position, whatever it is. You lost your OC. didn't fill in didn't fill in the OC after you lost him, and didn't fill in the DC that you were missing. You didn't resign Dante Hightower, and you didn't add any linebackers that are
You also
game
lost
changers.
J.C. Jackson.
You lost J.C. Jackson. You didn't add any depth, and your only depth you added was Malcolm Butler. And really, what was that going to do from you 1 year retired?
And then you cut him.
And then he got hurt.
Oh, fair.
He had a season-ending injury, so it was like, I get it, like that's out of your control. But I mean, really, you're right. He probably might have even been cut if he didn't get hurt. And then your only offensive weapon you added was the kid in the second round, and then he gets hurt. But you don't add any veteran wide receivers around Mac, which is what we said.
Devontae Parker. I don't know. Do you count him?
Oh yeah, I guess Devontae Parker. I guess that's a big ad. I guess that's a good ad. But I was hoping for like a splash or like a little bit of a step up. Devontae Parker will probably be pretty good, but I feel like and then you lost what's his name on the offensive line? You trade him to Tampa for nothing. Marcus Cannon.
Right.
Was it Cannon?
I think
it was Cannon. So long ago, I forget. But my point is, you had just these couple holes you had to fill. And then you just made more holes and didn't fill the old ones. Like we subtracted and we didn't add. So I have a big cause for concern, to be honest with you. And I felt good when the schedule came out. I was like, man, I think we can scrounge wins together if everyone improves. And if we add a couple extra people, this was pre-draft, I think, or right after the draft. But I feel a little nervous. I think there's good cause for concern going into the season. But, I think the big test is going to be week 1 against the Dolphins. That's like, we talk about your division. This is a tough division. Whether we want to admit it or not, the Dolphins are going to be better than they were last year because they were just a mess. Obviously, there was internal things that were going on that we didn't know about, and that place is a mess. But now this year, 1 year removed, maybe they're better. I think they take a step in the right direction. The Bills are the Bills, and the Jets got better. Whether we want to admit it or not, the Jets got better. They added some good people in the draft. They're another year older. They got a good running back. They got a good young running back. They got a good young wide receiver. And Zach Wilson, even though both of us do not like Zach Wilson,
not a big Zach Wilson guy.
Refuse. Not a big. I will never be a Zach Wilson guy, but he's got to be better than he was last year. Year 2, a little bit of a year 2 jump. He's got some more weapons around him. Who's to say he won't get better? I think the Jets get better, and especially with Robert Saleh leading the charge, I think they're going to be better than they were. I'm not saying the record's going to really reflect that. I'm not going to say they're going to be a playoff team, but you're in a tough division right now, and everyone around you added, and you just subtracted. So
yeah,
I'm nervous.
So I'm going to go through the offseason from what I can tell. I'm sure we've already talked about most of this, but just to kind of recap what we've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
So we released Kyle Van Noy. James White retired. We signed Ty Montgomery at wide receiver. Malcolm Butler comes and goes. And then you kind of fast forward a little bit. I mean, you have some offensive line guys. You have some like kind of fringe guys. You signed Jack Jones to his rookie deal. So you have the draft going. And then you come into July and it's, signing and releasing. You activate David Andrews off the PUP list. Jake Bailey comes back.
And by the way, Ty Montgomery just got hurt, so he's out for the year.
So
so it's like, what are we doing?
I'm trying to. Jabril Peppers is up. You have Jabril Peppers now. You have Jonathan Jones from the IR. Miles Bryant.
Well, I like Jonathan Jones. I think Jonathan Jones is going to be a good corner for us. You're missing J.C. Jackson. That's a huge person to replace.
You trade N'Keal Harry. That's always going to be a positive. So
yeah.
But I mean, so I'm going through this, and it's a lot of like, whether you want to call it addition or subtraction, it just seems like a lot of lateral moves. Like there is no big, other than the Parker move. The Parker move is the Parker move, but just a lot of like lateral, staying in the same spot, nothing really blowing up, especially on the defensive side of the ball, like nothing real crazy. So it's hard for me to really look at this team and be like, damn, they really figured it out. Like you said, plugged up their holes and they're good to go now. Where, you have to almost ask yourself, like, are there more holes than they started with? Are we contending with more problems than we started with? That'll all answer itself week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, when, things kind of get going, you get into the swing of the season. But I mean, I've definitely felt better heading into week 1 in other years, but maybe I'll be surprised. I don't want to say this team is dead on the water by any means, but I
No.
mean, geez, it's certainly not like a 2017, 2018 team where we're like, all right, who, are we going 14-2, 15-1?
Right. I'm not saying this team is garbage, but if you asked me last year after we lost in the first round to the Bills, where do you see this team finishing next year? I'd say AFC Championship game. Just because I think we're gonna, maintain what we got and then add to that. Now I don't know. I think we're a wild card team, but I think we stay there, and now we're stuck in mediocrity. And it's like, and I could be wrong, like things could change. They could add people. Some of these rookies could pop. Who knows? Jonathan Jones could become the new JC Jackson. He just comes out of nowhere, and Jalen Mills pops. Finally we see Juwan Bentley be, a good linebacker and be a leader of the defense. Maybe Joe Judge and Matt Patricia are the best offensive duo. I don't know. Like, I don't think so. I don't think any of that's going to happen. But I don't feel as comfortable as I did after we lost.
No,
Got
certainly not. I mean, heading
blown
into
out.
that Bills game, I was confident as hell, and now
Yeah.
a tale
But
of
even
two
after I
seasons.
felt good.
So, do you blame the front office? Do you blame just the kind of current situation with the salary cap? Do you blame the team for maybe not addressing it? I don't know, but
Put a lot of it on the front
it's
office.
really hard to look at this team and think it's kind of in the same ilk as the Red Sox, in their offseason heading into this season. Did you do enough to address the issues we all know you have heading into the season? And with the Red Sox, it was all right. They made a couple like smaller moves, no real big splash other than Trevor Story, who is kind of a good comp to Devontae Parker. You make kind of a, semi big splash. You bring in a guy like that. And other than that, it's just like a lot of like, Michael Walker, Rich Hill, you're messing around with like Cutter Crawford, the bullpen you don't really address. You kind of let that go. Chris Sale will be back, will be fine. And then, the wheels fall off. So it remains to be seen if this Pats team will respond or if the wheels are going to fall off in like week 10 and we just watch them sink. It remains to be seen, but
And they don't want to re-sign their guys. They're homegrown guys. It's like they're not re-signing Devers and Bogey, which is obviously mentally a hurdle that they have. You don't re-sign JC Jackson. You don't re-sign key guys on the
I
offensive
mean, not
line.
re-signing JC Jackson is kind of a wild move. I mean, which unfortunately it's par for the course. You talk about Ty Law, Asante Samuel, Darrell Revis, Malcolm Butler to an extent, and now JC Jackson just showing that the Pats will produce cornerbacks, but will not resign them. I know Darrell Revis was a signing, but again, you have these guys in-house and you just refuse to resign them.
You trade away Stephon Gilmore, who won the Defensive Player of the Year award 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then you don't re-sign JC Jackson. I thought it was a slam dunk that we were re-signing JC Jackson after, like, yeah, we're not going to give the money to Gilmore, who's older. We're going to give the money
who like Revis was a big signing, but again, you got to think that's a guy you want to keep around like that.
Right.
You can't think he's expendable.
And if you're going to get rid of him, you might as well, if you're not going to re-sign JC Jackson, you might as well keep Gilmore and sign him to another deal.
Right.
Like to my eyes, you keep one of the two at least. But it just doesn't make sense to me. I just don't get it. So what are your predictions for this team finish? Like, what do you think they're going to finish? What record do you think they're going to finish?
I think 10-8 is the floor. And I think anything less than 10-8 is a complete failure of a season. And that would be on the front office completely. If you don't, like, you have Mac Jones on his second year, rookie deal, you have the money, you brought in Devontae Parker, he already has Henry, he already has Jonnu Smith. Jacoby Myers took a big leap last year in terms of receiving. You finally got N'Keal Harry out of the room. Damian Harris is a legit back. Stevenson's a legit back. So the offense is there. It's a failed season if you were to have let the defense fall apart so badly that you go 9-9. It's 18 games now, right? 9-9, 8-10. Like that's even like 10-8. Like you only win
17 games.
Is it 17 games? All right.
So
10-7. So
yeah,
I'll say 10-7 is the floor. Like you should win 3 more games than you lose. Anything less than that is kind of a failure. I mean, again, the offense is for the most part loaded, if not solid. And if this team fails, it's going to be because of the defense. And you got to look around. Hey, we never brought in a DC. We let our 2 best corners walk. We didn't address those issues. We let the linebackers get older. So that's on the Patriots. That would be on the front office. And if this is going to be a lost season, that's completely on the front office. So I think it has to be at least 10-7.
Yeah, I think that's like where I look at it. I mean, I went through the schedule just now quickly, and looking at some of these teams, man, like especially at the beginning of the season, there's games that you should win. Like if I'm looking at the Patriots, like you're playing the Lions, the Bears, the Jets, the Steelers, who have a good defense, but their offense is kind of a mess right now. Like there's no they're kind of rebuilding that offense too. So like that's kind of a question mark. Obviously the Lions, the Bears, the Browns, they're going with Jacoby Brissett leading the charge when you play them. So
front of the pod,
you should. He's a big fan of the podcast. But you should win that game. You know what I mean? The Browns just keep getting worse.
Dude, imagine if Amari Cooper goes for like 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. He just absolutely scorches Jalen Mills.
If he's healthy.
True, very true.
And if Jacoby can make a pass, like that's like you're assuming a little too much there, Danny Football. There's a lot of
maybe we'll just have to. I mean, let's pull up the schedule. Let's kind of see what quarterbacks we're facing here. Hold on.
I got it right here.
Oh yeah. So let's just go through it.
So you're going Tua week 1 in Miami. I think that should be a winnable game for the Pats. You're playing either Trubisky or Pickett. Like
unknown. I mean, Trubisky, you know what you're getting. Pickett, you don't know. But again, that's a rookie.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers. But who's Aaron Rodgers got to throw the ball to?
Fair.
It's like I don't know if you've heard any stories about that, but like a week or two ago, Aaron Rodgers was like, we're gonna have to start fighting these guys because if they keep dropping passes, like it's not all smiles in Green Bay after that big extension. I think he's going to take a step. I mean, I've done some fantasy football drafts already, and Aaron Rodgers is like the 12th ranked quarterback going into fantasy football right now. And I think it's because he has no one to throw the ball to. He doesn't have his like get out of jail free card with Devontae Adams anymore. But obviously Aaron Rodgers. Right. Jared Goff.
I'll never be scared of Jared Goff.
Yeah. Jacoby Brissett.
Never be scared of him.
The
Justin
Bears,
Fields.
Justin Fields is a question mark. You don't know. Like that, he could be very good, or he could be like last year and be very bad.
This is Justin Fields 6 weeks into the season, so who knows at that point?
He could be even hurt. He may not even be playing at that point.
Zach Wilson.
Or Joe Flacco. Is Joe Flacco on the bed still?
Yeah, he is. But I
think Zach Wilson will be back.
I think he'll be healthy by then. Week 8.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan with the Colts.
That's a danger. I think Matt Ryan's gonna have a sneaky year this year.
I think he could just be like, I think it'll just be like Rivers. He kind of plugs in and just kind of does what he's gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's gonna. He's got Michael Pittman, man. I think he's gonna. I think him and Michael Pittman are gonna have a huge year together. Then you get Zach Wilson again.
Kirk Cousins and
Kirk Cousins. That Vikings offense is scary though. I'm a little nervous about that. I think the offense scares me more than Kirk Cousins.
You got Josh Allen,
Kyler
Murray,
Derek Carr, Joey Burrow, Tua, and then
Josh Allen
Allen
again.
That's a tough end of the season, man. That
Yeah.
last after they play the Jets, I'd even give them. I mean, I'll give the Vikings in that too. You're playing the Vikings offense, Josh Allen twice, Joey Burrow, Kyler Murray, Derek Carr, and I mean Tua. Get 1 week in there, but that's a scary end of the season. There, that's you got to get your wins at the beginning of the season. I'll say that. But I mean, looking at that schedule, I'd say at least 10 games I count are winnable. Like without it, like I would expect them to win those 10 games. Now there's some question marks in there, and of course some of those 10 games they're going to lose, and of course they're going to split with the Bills because why not? They're going to beat
Why not?
Because they just have to do that to us. They're going to beat probably the Packers because we're not expecting that. They're going to lose to the Jets. Like that's just typical Patriots teams that make me hit
Like
my head
last
into
year,
a wall.
we take the Bucks to the wire, and then we almost lose to the Jets. So
Right. Yeah, you get blown out by the Raiders, but you take the Bucks to a field goal. Like it doesn't make sense. But same thing with the Bills. Like you beat the Bills, but you lose to the Raiders. It just not the Raiders. Sorry, the Saints. Not the Saints.
Right.
You get blown out by the Saints, but you have a wire-to-wire game against the Bucks. But I think 10. I think you're right. I think 10-7 should be the goal. And I mean, maybe you give them 9-8, but I mean, now you're getting dangerous. You're on the cusp of a wild card team. I think 10 wins, you can do it. But I'll tell you, I feel a lot worse than I did at the beginning of the offseason.
Right.
So that was the Patriots offseason. Let's look a little bit around the NFL here. What is there any teams that stand out to you right off the bat? That let's start with like some of the wagons that were in the playoffs last year. Who do you think is going to still be at the top there and be a contender for a long playoff run and make a run at the championship?
I think you got to look at Buffalo. Kansas City is always going to be there no matter what. It doesn't matter. Patrick Mahomes is just a cheat code. I think Cincinnati will be back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just talking to AFC East. AFC East. I'm just talking to AFC right now. Baltimore is always just kind of in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Miami's a question mark. And Denver, we'll have to see what goes on with Russell Wilson. I think they'll be kind of an interesting team. And then you have the Chargers who are kind of on the outside looking in. So I think looking at the AFC side of things, there are a lot of good teams. But if you're talking upper echelon, I think it's Bills, Chiefs. Maybe you could toss the Raiders in just because of the Devontae Adams move, but I think it's kind of Bills, Chiefs, maybe the Bengals, and everyone else.
Yeah, I would say at the playoff teams that we had last year, I'd probably go with those three teams. Bills, Chiefs, Bengals. Then I'd put the Ravens in that next tier. You never know what you're going to get from them. They could be, pretty good. They could be pretty bad. And you're looking at those teams that are kind of like they were fringe wild card or missed the playoff teams. I think you got to look at that AFC West division. Like Chiefs, obviously we talked about. Broncos with Russ. I mean, he's got some weapons there, man. Like he's got
Jerry
Jeudy. He's got Sutton. That's a good offense. That's a pretty good offense, and the Broncos always seem to kind of figure it out on defense. So they could be really good. I mean, they were missing the quarterback was what we were hearing is what they were missing. And they got a all-star, all-pro quarterback. They should be better right away. The Raiders were obviously lost in that wild card game. They were close back and forth. Derek Carr finally gets that next level weapon that we've been looking for. Devontae Adams. I think they're going to be nasty this year. And the Chargers, they should be so good this year. Like this is the year. This is my team to pop this year. That non-playoff team to pop. The Chargers are just going to be nasty this year. Herbert's on year 3. He was so good last year. He's going to be even better this year. You got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Eckler if he can stay healthy. Health is just going to be the biggest part of this team because Eckler always seems to get hurt. Last year, got hurt a couple big games. Keenan Allen, his knees are made of glass, and then you just got to keep Herbert on his feet. They added some defensive players. Our old friend J.C. Jackson's going there. Added some other key defensive weapons. So I think the Chargers, I think they're going to give the Chiefs a run for the money for the division. I'll say it. I think they're going to be a division
It's a possibility. It's a
challenge.
possibility.
But man, I like what you said about the Dolphins. I think they're going to be better. I just don't know how much better they're going to be. Obviously, hopefully the Patriots are there. I think the Browns are going to be a dumpster fire. I hope they lose every game. I hate the Browns. And then obviously the garbage division of the AFC South. Who knows what's going to happen out of there? I think the Colts are the easy one to say. Colts and Titans. But as someone that has them in dynasty football, fantasy football, I'm hoping for a huge year 2 jump for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, a year, new coach in there, a good coach, way better than the fool he had in there last year. I'm hoping that team takes a little bit of a step forward as well, mainly for selfish reasons because I have Trevor Lawrence and he's the future of my franchise team. So, but I think my pick to be like the next, like the non-playoff team standout is the Chargers.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think they're kind of on that. Again, they're a question mark team, but they can make a big jump. NFC wise, Bucks are always going to be in there. Rams aren't going anywhere, man. They pretty much kept the entire team. NFC East is just going to be another shit show. So I'm not really, I'm not expecting much to come out of there. So I think it might be Bucks, Rams. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. I don't know who Rodgers is throwing to, so I don't know who's coming out of the North. So I'm kind of looking at the NFC. It might be just Rams, Bucks, and everyone else. I don't know who else can really contend.
Yeah, I think the Bucks and the Rams are going to be there at the end. I think it is a 2-headed horse race. Is that the right saying? I don't know. Two horse race. 2-horse race. 2-headed monster of the NFC, and that's the Rams and the Bucks. I think the Bucks are going to win the Super Bowl this year. How can he not go out on top? This is Brady's last year, obviously. He's done after this year. There's no way he's playing another year. The King has to go out on top. I just don't see how he doesn't finish on top.
You think he's going to get the Ray Lewis movie star ending?
I mean, if anyone's gonna, is it Tom Brady? I mean, the guy just wins. I don't see how he doesn't do it. So I think he's going to have a big year. I mean, he sat out most of preseason. He's probably doing the Masked Singer.
Yeah, I saw that.
But I think you're right. I think it's those two. I will say out of the NFC East, I think the Cowboys are going to run. I think the Cowboys have a good team. I think they'll kind of run away with that. You don't know what's going to happen with the Jalen Hurts second year. He's our guy, man. We were big Hurts guys. We don't know. He just got A.J. Brown, so I think the Eagles are going to be better. Cardinals are frauds. They're going to be, in the playoffs, but they won't do anything. 49ers are interesting. Will Trey Lance be good? I don't know. I don't know if Trey Lance will be good. Packers, like we said, I think they're going to win the division, but who knows? And the Vikings obviously will be right in there. I mean, the Bears, the Lions, the Lions. How do you think Baker's going to be in Carolina?
I think
CMC, dude. CMC.
I think he's a better option than Sam Darnold. I just don't know in that division if they're going to be able to make any sort of noise, especially if Jameis is fully healthy with those Saints.
Yeah, you're right.
It's gonna be such a hard division to kind of eke out a spot, and especially with the Bucks
Yeah.
just so dominant on top. I think he'll have a good season. I just don't know if he'll be able to really pull those guys out of the. That's just it's a hard division, man.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that is. I mean, you're right. I mean, if he goes to the NFC East, like I think they win the East. I think he's a game changer. I'm a big Baker Mayfield guy, so I think you're right though. I think the Bucks are just so dominant there. You don't know. I wasn't even thinking about Jameis. Like Jameis in there totally changes. If Jameis is at the top of his game, he's like unbelievable. So, man, I think Baker can bring them to a playoff spot. I don't know how long of a run they'll make, but I think Baker's a game changer. He helped bring that Browns team from 0-16 to being a playoff team. So I think he can do the same with the Panthers. I don't think they win the division, obviously. But I think a wild card team, I think that's not out of the question for that team. Especially, I feel like the NFC is pretty open. I'm not
1,000,000% it's open. Yeah, it's definitely
minus
open.
the top two spots. I
Right.
mean, I think it's. If you told me the Panthers finished fourth in the NFC, I would not be shocked. I would not be.
It's a possibility.
Or fourth or fifth. I mean, fifth, maybe fifth. Because I think, who knows what the Packers are going to do this year.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Packers could be garbage. They could be pretty bad. But I think Aaron Rodgers is like I said, he's a difference maker. I think he helps you get more. I think he'll put the team on his back for a lot of games. I mean, the Cowboys with Dak, I think if Dak's healthy and that whole offense is healthy, what Zeke are we going to get this season? I don't know. But if they told me that, obviously, I think if the Cowboys were in, I think they win the division. And if the Packers are in, they win the division. So, I think if you told me that the Panthers were in fifth in the AFC, in the standings, playoff rankings, I wouldn't be shocked.
No, yeah, that's definitely a spot they could occupy. I feel like that's a spot for all the teams to kind of shoot for is, can we get at least that wild card? So
yeah,
they have a good shot at it. They have the team built around Baker to make the most of it. So we'll see what happens.
It hinges on CMC stayed healthy too. If
Right.
CMC goes
100%,
down,
we saw that last season. It just completely fell apart.
Yeah. And they had Sam Darnold was looking like we were all saying, man, were we wrong about Sam Darnold?
Right.
And then the wheels fell off after, he gets hurt or the injury. He got hurt. Actually, Sam Darnold got hurt too. Looking at this, I kind of mentioned it. What do you think? Preseason, right now, instant gut, we'll do our official preseason predictions for Super Bowl matchup. But just thinking, looking at the the teams that we were looking at, what's your instant reaction? Who do you think is going to be in the Super Bowl?
I think it'll be Bills, Bucks.
Yeah. I really don't want to say Bills. But I think it's going
to be some combination of Bills and Chiefs again.
Yeah, I think the AFC Championship is the Bills versus the Chiefs. I think whoever wins that game will be facing the Bucks. I'm going to say it'll be different. I'll say the Chiefs versus the Bucks. We get round 2. Brady goes out on top. Versus Patrick Mahomes. For real this time. So just real quick, because I know we want to talk about the Sox. Fantasy football time, Danny Football. We got our big draft coming up for the Rob's Bald Spot League.
What time is that draft at?
7, I believe.
Okay.
I got to draft another team during the draft, which is just going to be that's just going to be a cluster. And then we got our podcast draft coming up too. I forget the date of that, but we got that. So let's help the listeners out a little bit. If you're in the first round, it depends on where you're at, but who is in a non-keeper league, you got everyone on the table. Who are you looking to target? Who do you think's the best Who if you have the number one pick, we'll say that because I don't think any of us have the number one.
If
pick.
I have
Who
the
do you
number
think?
one, if I have the number one pick, I mean, I might go. I've seen Jonathan Taylor, but I think I go Derrick Henry. He's just such a sure thing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say Derrick Henry, just because he's a sure thing.
I love Derrick Henry. He helped me get. He hurt me because he got hurt, but he helped me get second place last year. He's the only reason I built up such a lead. I think I won the first 10 weeks in one league just because Derrick Henry was getting me 30 points a game. Man, see, my battle is between Jonathan Taylor and CMC. CMC is a walking 25 points a week if he's healthy. It's just, will he stay healthy is such a wild card that you can't predict. So I think I lean Jonathan Taylor just based on he's younger, he's healthier, he's been healthier history-wise. But CMC, I mean, I know people are scared to take CMC with the first pick. I wouldn't be as scared because he's healthy, man. He's going to get you 25 to 30 points a week. Easy. Especially with Baker playing. We saw what Nick Chubb did with Baker Mayfield. It's we saw what Kareem Hunt did with Baker Mayfield, and they're the same player combined. It's Nick Chubb, powerful Nick Chubb, and pass catching Kareem Hunt. It's tough. That's a battle. I'm lucky I don't have the first overall pick in any drafts because I'd have a tough battle. I think I'd go Jonathan Taylor. I think you can't go wrong with them. But Derrick Henry's I think not many people would say Derrick Henry, but I think more people should think Derrick Henry was the first pick in the draft because it's I think he's he's going to get 30 to 40 touches a game. There's no one else on that offense.
Right.
It's through Derrick Henry every single play. So I like that. Who's your sleeper in the draft?
Sleeper. I'm trying to be smart about this because you and me are very close in
I know.
The RBS draft. The draft picks. So I got to be careful about who.
If it makes you feel better, I'll probably forget whatever you say.
Play my hand.
I'll tell
here.
you. I'll tell you. And no, and don't. We can say it again. Non-keeper. Everyone's on the table.
Okay.
No, there's no keepers in here. So maybe there's a keeper, and you can say a keeper if you want in the RBS draft that's already taken.
Sleeper wise, I'll go with my man Jalen Hurts. Then I feel like people may have soured on him a little bit more than they should have, but I think between his rushing and his passing, he could still produce a good fantasy number. So I'd say maybe 8, 9, maybe 7 if you're looking for a QB. Just kind of, and maybe some other QBs are off the board. Grab Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I'm drafting Jalen Hurts now.
He's a keeper, so you can't.
I know. I'm just kidding. Dude, I almost kept Jalen Hurts in my my other league I drafted yesterday. I had a long debate, which I gotta ask you this question. Maybe now is a good time, but I had a debate between Darren Waller in the 4th or 5th round, or Jalen Hurts in the 11th round. I was like, that's a lose-lose because I have 2 keepers in that league. One of them is Justin Jefferson, the second to last round, so he's locked. And then I was like, I'm high on Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to be my nickname on Sleeper for him was future MVP. I drafted him 2 years ago. I know I picked him up in free agency 2 years ago. Had the same debate last year. Didn't keep him. Reached on him in the 11th round or 12th round last year. And then I had the same debate this year, and it was literally the night before when keepers locked. It was down to the last minute decision, and just because tight ends are I took Waller. My team is pretty nice in that. It's pretty filthy in that league. I have.
Yeah, I mean, for 11th round, that's good value, but locking up a tight end is so important.
In the 5th round, too.
Right, especially in the 5th round, and then you could always just draft it. There's going to be quarterbacks on the board anyway, so
I ended up getting Russ. So it's
that's the same, yeah.
Yeah, and I ended up, since I didn't have to draft the tight end early, I was at the end of the draft, at the end of the 1st round. So I went, and I had Justin Jefferson already later in the draft. So I went Cook, Dalvin, and Joe Mixon. back to back. Like
There
I
you go.
went 9. I think I was picking 9, so I went those 2, and then I got Keenan Allen in the third because I didn't have to worry about a tight end. So, and then I went James Conner in the fourth. So my first 4 picks were Cook, Mixon, Allen, Connor, and I had Waller, and then I had Justin Jefferson in the back, and then I got Russ. That's like
There you go.
I got a wagon. If everyone stays, I get the most made of glass team in the whole league. But if everyone stays healthy, I should be pretty good. I think I'll be all right. My sleeper is Adam Thielen. I don't know why everyone's not high on this guy this year. He's going in like the 11th round. I think he's a keeper in our league too. So 2 fantasy football savants here, Danny Football, picking keepers in a keeper league as our sleepers. But he may not be whoever. Maybe someone didn't keep him, but I think he should be a keeper. Whoever's not, whatever. But I think. But I think Adam Thielen's fallen in a lot of drafts. Another guy that's fallen in a lot of drafts, and I understand because of the team he's on and injuries. But if you're in the last round and you have everything situated and you're just trying to add a player, I'd take Robert Woods. Robert Woods is going in the last round in a lot of leagues. Guy was a 5th round, 4th round pick last year. And part of that is team-wise. He's on, he goes from the Rams to the Jaguars. The Titans. I get it, but I mean, Tannehill has to throw the ball to someone, and it's probably going to be Robert Woods. So, I'd more lean Thielen because I know he's battled injury, but where you can get him in the draft, I think he's going to be pretty good. I think those are 2 guys that I think are good.
Sleepers, man.
Solid sleepers. And I have yet to draft any of them. I always miss out on them. I think I got Thielen in the league, but I haven't really got them. But let's move on. Let's get to the Sox because I want to quickly go through this because this is just going to make me depressed. Sox are struggling. The division, they're in last place in the division, 7 games out of a wild card. Still have not signed Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers. With all that said, do you think they can? First of all, do you think they can make up 7 games in the wild card?
Nope.
Okay, sounds good.
No.
I feel good about.
Too many times this season, I've been like, you know what? Maybe they can do it, and then they just absolutely shit the bed. I am out on this team, man. I'm out.
I think
you're still in.
I just want to hold on to hope, and that's just. I mean. Do I feel good about it? No, I'm not going to sit here and say like, yeah, this team's a lock for the playoffs, but sometimes
can they mathematically make the playoffs? Yes. In my heart of hearts, do I think they can do it? No.
Well, can they do it? I don't. That's a different. I think it's looking at their schedule, what they got for the rest of the season, right? They got to make the playoffs. They got to beat some decent teams, right?
Which they have not done.
They have not done, but they got to play the Twins next. They're starting a Twins series right now. They get the Rangers. And then you go on this little run where you're playing in division and a couple out of division.
We don't play great against the division.
No, we don't. No, we don't. But who's in front of you in the wild card? The Orioles and Blue Jays. That's who. Blue Jays are in the wild card. If you win some of these series going forward,
I don't trust them to win these series. They can win the series. I just do not trust them at all to do it.
What do you think it takes for them to do it? Like, do you think there's is there anything that's in-house that they can do to make it so they can?
Well, they just called up Zach Kelly and Caleb Bort, so the bullpen's fixed after they release Sawamura and Austin Davis. So everything's good to go now that we have the Woo Sox up in the bullpen. I mean,
Tristan Cassis?
JD Martinez has to figure it out. Tristan
Cassis, that's a big one.
Tristan Cassis should be getting some looks.
Duran back down, huh?
I mean, he deserves it. The dude's batting less than 200. And if I'm being honest, he should have been sent down after his whole debacle with not running down center field balls, and his effort's been suspect to say the least. And you're talking to the biggest Jarren Duran fan before he got called up. So for me to kind of take the rose-colored glasses off and be like, this dude has some issues he needs to work out. He has some issues he has to work out. So I mean, you got to give Cassis a shot, see what he can do. You don't have to worry about burning one of his rookie years right now.
Yeah.
The bullpen has been reloaded. I'm not trying to be too sarcastic about calling up Zach Kelly and Caleb Bort. It is fresh blood. JD has to figure it out. Xander has to get hot again. Trevor Story is working his way back. So it's a good reset button to hit. But again, these guys have to contribute. If Zach Kelly and Caleb Bort come up and they're not the answer, then the bullpen's exactly where they are before. If JD stays cold and Xander stays cold, that hurts the lineup. If Trevor Story comes back and he's not the Trevor Story we paid for, that's a problem.
They did get Kike back.
What's that?
They did get Kike back.
They did. That's always a good versatile guy to have.
But it's not like the game changer that
no,
they need to.
No, it's not.
I think Story could be that though.
He could. He definitely could. So I mean, you have the opportunities are there for these guys to contribute. It's a race against time, man. Like this podcast is going to come out in the month of September, man. So, and this is something we were talking about back in April and May. Like, oh well, they have time, but they're running out of time. They have time, but they're running out of time. They have time, but they are certainly running out of time.
Yeah, they're about out of time. So I think you're right. It takes a couple weeks to get hot, and then 2 weeks of being hot, and then you're right back in.
June, they were the hottest team in baseball, and then the wheels fell off. So if they can put it together, they can get back in the conversation. But again, the theme of the season has been just digging holes that they can't get themselves out of.
Yeah. So, hey, I don't feel too good about it. Looking at the future of this team, how do you feel?
It hinges completely on re-signing Xander and Devers.
I agree.
If those two guys walk, this team's in deep trouble. Deep trouble. I mean, I know people are like, oh, well, you can move Story over to short. I'm like, all right, so you move Story over to short. You're probably putting Dahlbeck at third and Cassis at first, which isn't a doomsday scenario, but I mean, we all know Bobby Dahlbeck can't hit.
No.
He just can't do it. So now you have a complete liability in the lineup in Bobby Dahlbeck. Second base becomes a opening again, whether it's Arroyo or Kike, which also opens up a hole in the outfield, whether you mess around with Duran again or bring someone in. I don't know. So it's a reshuffling and a lateral move, and you take two great bats out of the lineup and you replace them with Bobby Dahlbeck and Tristan Cassis, who for all I know, Tristan Cassis will take to it and be a good bat in the lineup, but it's hard for me to imagine he's going to be a Rafi Devers or a Xander Bogaerts in his rookie year, man. It's really hard for me to say that.
And I mean, you'll have if they don't re-sign him, at least you'll have Cassis for like 4 or 5 years until they don't want to re-sign him, and then you don't want to re-sign your homegrown stud talent and let them go. Honestly. The only thing that can make this, I don't even care about the end of the season, to be honest with you. The only thing I care about is re-signing Devers and then Bogey.
That's
resign the two of them.
Top priorities.
Nothing else matters, and I think that should be the goal and I mean, Heim's got to do it. I mean, we've been saying in Heim we trust. He's pulled deep for a long time. He pushed all the right buttons, but this season, man, he's pushed some wrong buttons. And I mean, I like the Walker signing. Walker actually did really well. I mean, I know we beat up on him, but I think he was a good add. But they didn't add enough of the other thing, and they didn't sign. I think if you sign those two guys, if
you sign those two guys, that changes everything.
I think the air in the clubhouse is different. Right, you know what I mean?
Right. I think they honestly would perform better knowing that weight's off their shoulders.
Right. I think so too. I think whether Devers wants to, I mean, whether Bogey wants to admit it or not, because I heard an interview with him. I think it is bothering him. He said it doesn't bother him.
There's no way that's not.
That's not in the back of his head. There's not a chance in the world that that's not on the back of his head. But we'll have to see. Hopefully, hopefully they at least re-sign those guys, and we'll be able to sit here, hopefully by the Sox offseason, and say, yep, Devers and Bogart are re-signed. All right, to close out the podcast, we're gonna finish as always with our final segment, the People's Topic.
It's the People's Topic, baby! People's Topic.
People's Topic, you can run it on our Instagram and Twitter page at Big Red Zone. Leave us a comment, topic, whatever you want us to talk about. This week we had a bunch. This one comes from Sammy Swoosh. He said, thoughts on Chet and Gallinari injuries, and if you think it's dumb for these guys to be playing other ball before the season.
So
I don't. Go ahead.
My thoughts on the Gallo thing was I was horrified. I was like, and from the pictures I saw him, like he ripped his knee.
Yep.
Wasn't as bad as we thought. He should be back in November, which is fine because the season doesn't really start till Christmas.
Mhm.
But in terms of these guys playing basketball in the off season, they're going to do what they're going to do. If you really want to incentivize them to not do it, fine. But they're basketball players, man. Like they're going to play. The Chet thing is horrible, but I mean, LeBron's out there too. It could have been LeBron that happened to.
Right.
And then, it's freak injuries, both non-contact. So there's not much you can do. It was going to happen at some point, whether it was during the off season or, October Thursday night game.
My whole thing is you got to be smart too. Like if I'm Chet and I know I'm going to be the main player, and I mean, for like you said, LeBron and Jason Tatum were playing in that game too.
Right.
You're going to be the leaders of your team, especially now when we're getting closer and closer to training camp. Why are we risking playing in a Pro-Am game? Or playing, I mean, it's a little different for Gallo because he's playing for his country, I guess. So you can kind of, wasn't he playing for Italy?
I think so. Don't quote
me
on that.
I mean, it's a tough topic. Like you don't want to tell these guys they're basketball players, like you said.
Well,
they want to play
it's almost the Terrell Suggs problem. I mean, he tears his ACL playing basketball in the offseason. The Ravens are like, dude, what are you doing? So these guys are going to do what they're going to do. Ben Roethlisberger got into a motorcycle crash. These guys are going to do what they're going to do. It's just a matter of can they still stay healthy or not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Chet one is, I think, worse than Gallo. Obviously, probably
look at it differently. I mean, that's the second round. That's your second overall pick. Gallo would have sucked, but at least it's just a bench guy.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's that's a horrific thing that happened. This one comes from Brett Shavs. Bold predictions for the NFL season.
Bold? I mean, do you call the Chargers bold? I don't know if that's really bold.
I don't think that's that bold.
I'll say I think someone other than the Packers will win the North. I'll go with that as a bold take.
That's a good one. I'm gonna go with the Panthers make the playoffs.
I like that.
I think that's would that be bold, you think?
I think that's bold. I think just considering, how crowded that wild card situation is going to be. I think that's a good one.
This one comes from Dan Smith X. He says, should Bloom be fired this upcoming offseason? There's a bunch here. So quick. I don't think so.
No, I don't think.
I think you give him another year. I mean, his first year he brought you to the playoffs. I think you give him a little chance to figure some things out.
Dave Dombrowski got fired the season after a World Series. So
I guess you're right.
Anything's possible.
I think you give him a chance because also he did have key injuries. I mean, Kike was out for months. Story was out for months.
Sale
which are
fucked
key guys he
around
brought
and
in.
got himself out again.
Sale is the most unluckiest man on the face of the earth. It's like, so it's like give him a chance. I think give him another year. Should Pats fans be concerned with the offense and coaching this season? Yeah, we talked about that.
Coaching, yes. Offense, not so much. Defense, definitely.
Yeah. I'm nervous about the offensive coaching.
Coaching, yes, but them actually,
not the offense.
The players themselves, I'm fine.
Yeah. Also, does Big Red use stilts? Has his height been a lie this whole time? Nope. I can tell you that the height is real. 6'8", baby.
There you
All
go.
legs. All legs. All right. This one's a big one. One comes from Hunter. He writes, obviously the coordinator situation for the Patriots. Yeah, we talked about that a lot. Hot seat for Hein Bloom. Yeah, I think we just talked about that in the last.
Yeah.
I think he's in the hot seat this offseason. I think if he doesn't do anything in the next year, I think he's in trouble.
I mean, because for all we know, he could completely rebuild the bullpen, and then we're like, oh, he's a genius.
Right. Bruins sneaky good season loading. I mean,
considering it's probably the last ride for Bergie and Krejci, these guys really should just be going all out to close the season out on a high note.
Yeah, I think they could have a big year this year. I think it's going to be a good season. I think they could be a sneaky team.
I think they showed a lot of grit in that playoff series against Carolina. All you had to do was steal one on the road, and they couldn't do it, which sucks. But they defended home ice. They showed a lot of character in that series, I thought. So they're definitely not gonna be winning the President's Trophy, but I think they can at least contend.
Yeah. Caesar locked to have the best Celtic season ever.
It would be a colossal failure if they don't make the finals. Huge failure.
I think it would be a failure. I don't know if I could say best season ever, but they should have a really good season.
But it's finals or bust, man. This team is
right.
This team's more loaded than it was last year.
Correct. Gallinari being out is sneaky huge. I think he's a key bench piece, but I think they can figure it out for a month.
About it.
The Nets are sneaky the best team, highest ceiling in the NBA.
Frauds.
If everyone plays and if everyone
if they didn't all hate each other, yes, but they clearly all have issues. That team is not going anywhere.
If they didn't all hate each other and they trusted,
they're in the same
coach,
spot they were last year. I mean, they're in. Yeah. The only difference is now everyone knows they don't want to be there. That's
and
the
they
difference.
have Ben Simmons instead of James Harden, which who knows? I think that's a
Ben Simmons is the last guy I'm worried about.
Yeah. Last one, unless you want more NBA, I have a ton of NBA. Well, this is the last one he said. Warriors repeat Western Conference Championship loading. So he thinks Warriors are going to be the Western Conference Finals.
I don't think anyone's knocking them off. So I think it'll just be Celtics Warriors again.
I think the only team that may do it is the Grizzlies. If Ja doesn't get hurt, who's to say that they don't beat him in the playoffs last year? So I think it's close.
That's on Ja to stay healthy because he also has that issue.
Right. Ben Rappaport.
Oh.
He goes, how much the Sox stink, how much the Pats stink, how much the Bruins are going to stink. Looking forward to the Celtics, though.
Ben always keeping it humble.
I agree.
I mean, the Sox are in a bad place. The Pats are worrying us. The Bruins, I'm not too much worried about. That we'll find out as the season starts. And hockey's hockey, man. Like, it's so hard for a team to be dominant in hockey. So they always have a shot, and like half the teams make the playoffs anyway. So I'm not too worried about it right now.
And I agree with the Celtics. Ed says, members of the podcast, future plans. I'm not really thinking about
the
that.
Last
right
ride's
now.
not over, man. Last ride's not over.
We just jumped on this train, this final train stop. We'll still cruising.
Figure that out as we get there.
This one comes from Vicky. Oh geez. This one comes from Vicky. She says, final season, sad. Thank you, Vicky, loyal fan.
Thank you.
This one comes from Griff. Minor leaguers getting involved invited to the MLB PA.
Did they? That's huge. That's crazy.
That's awesome. You should invite Dave Griffin 100%. NFL news. Alexander Maddison possible trade and predictions for the season. Matt Petrillo said that. Do you mean in fantasy football? Because he's in my fantasy league. Or is he really getting traded? I need to look into that.
I have no idea.
I have no idea. That could be huge. Jack says Pat's predictions and schedule. We kind of already did that.
7 the floor, baby.
All right, this one comes from Sebastian. He writes the Missile. Shout out to the Missile. It's a little Rocks. He's played for the Rocks. Was a stud.
Oh, okay.
Not the Missile. Sebastian played for the Rocks. The Missile. If you know, you know. Shout out to the Missile. And I can't think of a better way to end the first episode of the final season of People's Topic with our guy, Joseph_Celia. He writes, and this is a little old one. This is we missed him on that final season finale last of season 4, so he sent one after. So he said, just use this one. He goes, what would be considered a successful Patriots season for you? To me, Super Bowl is out of the question for the time being, but a playoff win and making it to the second round would be considered a successful season for me.
I'd agree with that. I think a playoff win that's a step above what you did last year.
Right. Improved from last year.
Right. So I'd agree with that. I think that's spot on.
Yeah, I'd say that. I think a non-successful season would be not making the playoffs and
it's a step
losing.
back.
Yeah, I think not winning at least bare minimum 9 games. I think that's a failure as well. They go 8 and 9. That's a failure. So.
Yep.
But I agree. I think try to make it to the second round. I don't feel too confident in that, but especially now, but that could change in the next few months. So I like it. Again, thank you to all the People's Topics, people that wrote in. And remember, you can write in every week to our Instagram and Twitter at Big Red Zone. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you want to talk about. Also, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on TikTok. And please tell a friend about the last ride of the Big Red Zone. Sad to start this train off, but I
gotta get the ball rolling. It's only going to get better from here.
Wouldn't want anyone else at the co-pilot seat.
There we go. Wouldn't want any more in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to making this last run with you.
Let's do it. Last ride, baby. Last ride.
So, and also our last ride with the listeners too. Thank you for listening, and have a great week, everyone.